so it's coming through me this morning. Extreme. The understandings that I've been having, I think for the last hour I've just been sitting and what you would call thinking, but it's really just understanding. My understandings are so strong. I just need to get this recorded so that I have it, so that I can look back on it and understand it if I slip back and forget. When everything comes together like it's supposed to come together, when two sides of the same thing come together, but they haven't been together in so long. Each side has built on it its own individual I would say like shells that grow around it, and so the coming together is more painful because you have to when you come together you have to shed all of these shells that you've been built around your being in order for it to come together. That means we're the most afraid of what is the most exact for us, and it's the most painful to connect with what is the most exact for us, especially as an adult. When we're children, it's simple, because when we're children we don't have a lot of this external crust or hardness built up around us yet, so it's real easy. You just go, you're together. But as an adult, you've already been through a whole lifetime, and you've built all of these walls around yourself, and then to meet a person that can see you through all of these walls is scary, because they can see you as you are, so you have to clean yourself and shed all these walls and fears, and it is very, very, very scary. But the most natural thing in the world at the same time. I didn't think that that was what I was going to say, because it seems like my thoughts were completely, I mean, that is also something to say, but everything that I've been thinking of was way more than that. And I guess you could apply that to anything. The things that we want the most, we're the most afraid of. Or the things that suit us the most, many times we're the most afraid of going and getting because of fear of failure, or I don't even know. Or maybe we think that that is that we're undeserving of what exactly it is that we want, or of our higher purpose, or fear of our higher purpose, or fear of not fulfilling it successfully, so we go for the lower things. I don't know. It's becoming clearer and clearer and clearer every day. And I know what I want. I think. Because everything seems to be changing so fast. It's changing so fast, but on the outside you can't see it. I start reaching for one thing, and the next day that's not what it is anymore. Or I think I'm in the right place, and then when I get there, or I think I'm reaching for the right thing, and then when I get there, I realize that there's just so much more, that it's not that. Or that that's part of it, or that that was a step on the way to understanding that it's so much more. This path to enlightenment, and I know that that's the path. I already see it, and I can call it by name. It is painful. And I think that that is part of it. It's inevitable, because you can't shed all your shells without the pain of shedding them. You're allowing all of your boundaries down. You're breaking away everything that you believe to be true, and you are becoming vulnerable. And you're allowing yourself just to be. It's like, it would be the difference between, let's say, like a slug and a, what are the other ones called? A shabloon. You know what I mean? You know, the slug doesn't have its outer protection, so it's like you're taking off all of your outer protection and allowing yourself to be vulnerable and your true self to come out. So in the end, you know, it's the most cleansing and feels the best and the most freeing thing in the world to be free of all your boundaries and everything that you closed your vulnerable self up in. But at the same time, breaking down all these walls is just one of the most painful things, because you're also in yourself. You have to look internally and see what caused you to build these walls. You have to go through all of your traumas and all of your childhood traumas. And, you know, there's a reason why we built these walls around us, because we didn't want to face these weaknesses, or didn't want to, or face things that we didn't like about ourselves and fix them. But then we're free of them. And then we're free of the illusion too. So then you can live in heaven on earth and not be afraid of falling back into these fears. Ooh, that's nice, see? That's a powerful thought. And it seems like the more I go forward in this journey of self-healing, the more I get closer back to how I was as a child. Emotions are coming up that I haven't felt since I was 3 or 4. All of a sudden I'll feel an emotion, and I'll have like a memory of the emotion from when I was really little. From when I was living up at the cabin. Up at the cabin was when I was like 3 or 4. I'll have these emotions that I remember having then and that I haven't felt since. That's why it's bringing me back into my early childhood, where you feel something uncomfortable and you just decide that I'm not willing to feel that, and you close it off into like this little mind lock. And then anytime that emotion comes up, you're like, okay, I'm not going in there. And then it just becomes like an automatic. And you never go into those boxes, and you never pull them out, and it becomes an automatic. The emotion starts coming up, it's automatically closed away until you don't even know that you're doing it anymore. You don't even know that it's there. You don't allow yourself to feel those emotions. Especially with yearnings of things that we want that aren't fulfilled. That's very painful, so we just quit wanting them. And that can be for love too, you know, a love that is not being fulfilled, so we just quit wanting it. We just decide that, oh, it doesn't matter to me, I'm not gonna, you know, and then you close it off in this little box. or some kind of satisfaction, or some kind of, something that you see that other people have that you don't. I was lucky with that one. I never really had a problem with the jealousy of others, because from a very, very, very young age, I understood that it was false, that it was just that you can turn jealousy into inspiration, and that no two of us are alike. So whatever somebody else has is their independent journey, and and what is for them in their life, and the things that will satisfy me in my life are completely different. My talents are different. I'm a completely different, unique person. More and more I'm seeing people that have lived with jealousy their entire lives, and it's useless, really. It's a hindering. Jealousy hinders expansion, because when you're jealous, it's a belief that option is not an option for you. So you're already cutting it out instead of turning it into inspiration, and then you're like, oh, that person is doing that or this or that. I also want to be able to bring myself forward like that. And it inspires you to go do your own things. Whereas if you sit in jealousy, it just hinders you, and it hinders the other person from being who they are next to you, because jealousy, it shows. And so not only are you pushing the people that interest you the most out of your life by being jealous of them, because if you're jealous of them, it means you like what they're doing, or you think they're interesting people, more interesting than you. It's also putting your own self down, and it's also closing off those options for you, because if you're jealous of somebody, it is the belief that they can do it, but you can't. So if you're sitting in jealousy, you're always believing that you can't, or that option isn't available for you. So jealousy comes, it's like one of those past three emotions. It's like one of those things that comes to teach you something. It comes to show you that you are not living in your full power. Because if you're jealous of somebody else, you're busy with them and not busy with yourself. And if you're jealous with somebody else, then it means that you're not completely fulfilling yourself. Because if you were completely fulfilling yourself, you'd be so excited about your own life that anybody else's life wouldn't matter, because you're so satisfied with your life that you would be happy also for them. Oh, cool, I have this cool life, but so do they. Hey, let's be friends. Oh, look how this all turned around. See, I wasn't crying before because I was sad. It's when I go deep, it makes me emotional, and then it just comes out. Sometimes I cry because I'm sad and feeling sorry for myself. But sometimes I'm just crying because something is coming out from a deep place. I also have sometimes that when I'm saying something that is like to somebody that is coming from a really, really deep place, I lose my vision. Like I start saying, it'll start going white, or sometimes it'll just go completely black. Like I go into a completely different place. More and more, just in the last few days, maybe the last week, ever since I've realized that I channel messages. It's been so emotional for me, because once I agreed with myself to say it, or to grasp it, or to, in Hebrew it's I don't even know in Hebrew what it's called, like once I was able to like bring that forward in my own mind and grasp it and call it by name and say, okay, this is what it is. Admit it to myself and not be afraid of, especially, the fear of my family. I love my family, and it's kind of corny to say that I channel things, it's kind of, it's kind of out there, kind of crazy. I had a good friend that told me that if I'm the crazy one in my crazy family, then that's a good thing, because my whole family's crazy, and that's true. Well, generations of crazy. and in a good way. So all of my family, I love you very much. It's a compliment. It's a compliment. If this video ever gets out anywhere, I don't know. All this crabbing and bawling and stuff. I don't know about all this. But I guess if I really want to put myself out there, this is what it is. I mean, I'm not going to be able to channel these things through me without the bawling and crying, and it just wouldn't be, I mean, what am I going to do? Tighten it all up and write it down and then read it out like it's, I don't know, listen kind of, now I'm like, oh, and this is what is it. But I guess if this is how it's coming out, this is how it's coming out. And it's just like, whoever wants to watch this gets the messages. By the way, when I watch these videos afterwards and I'm crabbing and crying in them, I laugh at myself. It just is the funniest thing. I get a real kick out of it. Me bawling in front of the camera is just something else. So just so you know, so it's not like, traumatic for me or anything. It's more of like watching a comedy, drama comedy. So, getting over the fear of being called crazy and my crazy and my crazy family, that's like super crazy. So crazy genius. We have so many crazy geniuses in my family. Like, my family is full of like these off the wall genius, like, I don't know, I think genius and poor come together because we're so freaking off the wall. We can't seem to fit into the matrix and find a way to make a living. But then, the poorness also makes you more of like a genius, because in order to like get things that you want, you have to like make them and figure out how to do them. Or it's funny. It's really funny. Like, my brother made these flippers for swimming. It's just super funny. My dad's writing this historical book, but he doesn't want to hook his computer up to the internet, so the interwebs, so nobody can come in and steal his book that he's been sitting and writing for 20 freaking years. And I tell him, come on, so put out some of it. At least some of it. It's knowledge for the world. No. It has to be all the way done. So that's also a lesson for me. Is sometimes you just have to do things on the fly. If I'm waiting for everything to be perfect, I might be dead before I put anything out. So I'm just putting it out. I also think that there's a place in the world now for being authentic and just being. I think that there's a good place in the world for that. It is a good example to just be yourself, man. We're all so tied up in what does it look like, and what is politically correct, and what isn't, and what will anybody think of me? And we're so far away from our authentic selves that it's just silly. Much silly. So, I don't even remember what I was talking about. There was going to be a really deep message here, but what I'm starting to understand is that everything is exactly as it's supposed to be. So I imagine that there are plenty of messages here for whoever needs to get the messages. I trust that the universe, it flows through me. It flows through me, really. It flows through me. And whatever is meant to be is, and I feel a lot better after sitting down and making this movie. I crack myself up. This is pretty good. This is pretty good. The craziest of family of crazies, I think, is that, then I get the crown. I get the crazy crown. Yeah. I channel messages. Yeah. Crazy crown. My great grandfather, he came to Jerusalem in 1932, I think was the first time he came to Jerusalem, and he came after he had an epiphany. I read his story just this year. Up until this year, I really didn't even know that, and it's funny because it's my family. And he wrote books that I didn't read yet, so I'm also looking forward to reading that. And all of a sudden, I'm connecting to the Bible and the ancient writings and Greek mythology, and I think that it would take the rest of my life just to sit down and read all the books and understand them. But I'm getting the gist of it. I'm just reading enough to grasp it, and it's also very difficult for me to grasp because what I'm realizing is that a lot of the things that are spoken of in the New Testament and in the Old Testament and in mythology, these are all things that I already found in myself to be true, and that is like overwhelming because it's like finding the truth in the truth. And it's like finding things out within myself with the eternal path that I've gone through. And, you find these things, and it's lonely when you find all of these things within yourself, because there's not very many people or external places to share this knowledge with, and then all of a sudden you find all these ancient books and writings, and it's exactly that. It's exactly that. And it's just like blowing my mind. It's blowing my mind. Faith and religion and things that I kind of grew up with pushing away from me, I'm all of a sudden finding are the truth in it. And it's not that I'm finding the truth, it's like I already found the truth within me, and then I'm finding these external maps that are already written, that people have already written down thousands of years ago. And it's overwhelming. And it's honor, like, I feel blessed and honored and Sanua, what's the word where you like, I don't know the word, like brought down, but it's not brought down in a negative way. It's like there's such Sanua, there's a good word for it. I can't find it right now. If anybody's interested, they can ask me later. I'm sure the word will come up as soon as I stop the video, or it might come up in the Oshech, but I just feel totally honored and to find all this knowledge, to be able to have gone through myself and find it in myself before I find it in the books. It just shows me that I am on a path of light, or the path of God, or I don't know, God has so much connected to it already that that and so many feelings already connected to it that it's difficult for me to use that word. It's like the all, or the universe, or whatever you want to call it. It doesn't matter. The higher being, which I know that, ugh, my legs are falling asleep. I'm sitting here. In a minute, I'll show you where I'm at. I'm like sitting in this shed. I have stuff that I need to do, graphic work that I need to, I also want to do, because it's for my making a living. I still have to make a living in this world, even if all of this exciting emotional and spiritual stuff is going on. I still have to somehow make a living. It seems like all I can do is to be on my spiritual path. My great-grandfather had some kind of overwhelming epiphany. I read about it not too long ago. And had a knowing that he had to get to Jerusalem. I know that because of that, somehow my life led to me living here in Israel, in the Galilee. That's where it started. What is that? How many generations ago? 3 generations ago, my great-grandfather came here. In 1932, he came to Jerusalem and started, and put down a base for the Church of God Seventh Day. And then after that, my grandfather and my great aunt came also, and they put out a newspaper called the Mount Zion Reporter from Jerusalem. And they set up like their church headquarters in Jerusalem, and they were settled in Baka and in Abatul. The church was in Abatul, right across from Mount of Olives, I think. And so my mother was raised in Jerusalem from when she was 6. And then my father came to Jerusalem after the 73 war. And he was raised in Montana. He was born in Washington and raised in Montana, and started getting into reading the New Testament. And his friend got some kind of inheritance and said, hey, you want to come with me to Jerusalem? I'll buy you a ticket. And bought him a ticket. It was all on a whim. And he came, and the night that he came, and they were staying with my grandfather, from the same church, the same movement. And that's how he met my mother. And then they were married within 2 months. And they stayed here. I was born in Jerusalem. And then when I was 2, they went back to the States, and they went first to Montana and then to Oregon, which is where my mother came from, and she had family there. And then we all moved from Oregon. We moved around my whole life. So we lived in a couple of places, a couple of different houses that I remember in Oregon, and then we moved down to Arkansas. And in Arkansas, I remember 3. We lived in 3 different homes, but one of the houses was the cabin. And the cabin was up on a mountainside, pretty much by ourselves. My dad, we grew our own vegetables, and we raised goats that we milked. I would go and milk them before I went to school. I started school there. I started school in kindergarten. I never went to school before kindergarten. And I remember I really wanted to go to school because my older brothers got to go to school and I didn't. But I used to go and check the traps with my mother. We never caught anything in the traps. I never remember. And we would go in the snow. We would go all the time, and we raised guinea pigs and goats. And we would go and milk the goats at least a couple times a day. And we raised our own garden. I loved it. We ran around naked all the time. I used to run around in the forest naked. We would carry our own spring water. So my dad ran a hose from a pond that we would use for showering or washing dishes or whatever, down to the kitchen, but we couldn't drink the water. So my brothers and I, it was our job to go down to this natural mountain spring, and we would collect water and bring it up for drinking. And we would milk the goats, and my mother used to take like the cream. The milk was settled, and she'd take the cream off the top and make it into butter, I remember. And that was like, I think I was there, I was around 3 to 4. I started kindergarten there. So that was, I remember something that really shaped me. I connected to nature. I loved it. I loved it. I loved it. I still have like warm, longing feelings. I used to go run around. I had dogs. We had like 4 dogs. I used to go run around with the dogs on the mountain all the time. And nobody would come up there because it was like way up on this mountainside. You had to have like a Jeep to get up there. I remember a lot of times we couldn't even get up there with our car when it was raining, or we would have to park. And to get to the bus, we had to walk a couple miles in the morning to get up really early in the freezing cold and walk down the mountainside, the country road. I loved it. I loved it. I loved it. And that was in Arkansas. So we lived in Arkansas in a few different places. And then we moved to California when I was 8. And there we got into the Jewish community, Chabad community. My father always raised us. When he was in Jerusalem, at first he went as a devout Christian connected to the church, and then he saw that Christianity came out of Judaism. That's what I understood. So he raised us as Jews, but it wasn't conventional. I only started realizing that in later years, that it really wasn't conventional, because he went by the book. He went by the Bible book. So probably closer to truth than the conventional today. And that might not be something that a lot of people like to hear, but it's my truth, and I'm allowed to say my truth no matter what it is. It's my truth. And now I feel like I'm connecting back to my Christian roots, which I also know that could be difficult for some of my family members to grasp or understand, but it's also my truth, and that's who I am and what I believe. This is all just coming to me so it's difficult for me to grasp, and it's coming so fast. So then we moved to California. We moved around into a couple of different places in California. And then when I was 12, we made Aliyah to Israel. And that's how I ended up back in Israel. My grandparents were still here in Jerusalem. And they were still putting out when I got here. I got here back to Israel in 88. When we left, I was 2, so it must have been, I was born in 76, so it must have been 78 or 79 that we left. I remember, I don't remember leaving, but I remember 1980. I remember it becoming 1981. So I must have been 3, 4. Unbelievable. This is 34 minutes I've been talking, and but for me, it's like a lifetime journey, emotional ups and downs, and going back and telling about my childhood. And in 34 minutes, you can visit your whole life and your grandparents' life, and go through your beliefs and your fears, and cry and laugh, and in 34 minutes. Sheesh. Well, I think I'm going to go and I'm going to start my day. I could talk all day long. Thank you.